Hello, everyone. I'm so delighted to welcome you all to this very special initiative by ETHRWorld, Women Trailblazers, a celebration of International Women's Day. We are here today to recognize women's incredible achievements, share and listen to their stories of growth, success, and failures, to encourage everyone to advocate for gender equality and grow together stronger. As I begin this celebration, I am reminded of Michelle Obama's words: there's no limit to what we as women can accomplish. So get ready to inspire as we unfold the week long celebration of Women's Day at ETHR World Women Trailblazers. Please use the hashtag #ETWomenTrailblazers to spread the word around. I am so delighted to kickstart the first session of this very interesting and inspiring event. And without further ado, I would like to invite for this fireside chat on Women in HR, the art of being a people leader, Madhulika Vedula, Director HR, Providence, India. Madhulika leads human resources for Providence's Global Innovation Center in Hyderabad, India. Partnering closely with business, Madhulika is driving the people strategy for nurturing a strong and highly engaged talent base to support the global vision of health for a better world. As Providence India accelerates its efforts towards healthcare uh, digital transformation, Madhulika work goals will build an authentic and inclusive work culture with resilient talent that is deeply involved in the organization's vision and purpose. She has 2 decades of rich experience in all facets of HR, spread across leadership roles at Deloitte, Bank of America, and niche firms like TV Rao Learning Systems. A strong champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Madhulika's strength lies in building culture of excellence and high values. Welcome, Madhulika.
Thank you so much, Apeksha. Very excited to be here.
I have with me now Dhanashree Thakkar, VP HR, Bharti Apeksha Life Insurance, a business professional having worked across sectors in areas of change management, transformation, sales, and HR over 20 years. Dhanashree is a keen observer and listener who wants to use her understanding of behavior and organizations for creating environment for what's possible for the business and what it aspires to achieve. Her key area of interest include organization design, culture, managing transformation, and leadership coaching. She is passionate about creating sustainable organizations and have worked closely with schools, NGOs, helping them scale up. Welcome, Dhanashree.
Thank you so much for having me here, and pleasure to meet all the other panelists.
Thanks, Dhanashree. Now I have with me Divya Srivastava, CHRO GE Healthcare South Asia. Divya is a member of GE Healthcare South Asia senior leadership team, closely associated with GE for over 15 years. As CHRO for GE Healthcare South Asia, Divya prides herself for driving breakthrough thinking in the HR function and people practice. By listening to the voice of employees and tapping external market trends, she is leading a high impact change management agenda for HR, which is people centric and talent focused. Divya is a member of the board of GEBE Private Limited, a joint venture between GE Healthcare and Bharat Electronics. Welcome, Divya.
Thank you so much, Apeksha. It's a pleasure to be here with our fellow panelists.
So excited to have you all here today. And so, for the audience who are long waiting for us to start this conversation, I'll put forth the first question to this forum. So, Madhulika, I would like to begin with you. Do you think that there's a stereotype attached to female HR business leaders, because we are all talking to women HR leaders here? So, I would like your opinion first here, and then we'll go to Dhanashree and Divya on the same question.
Thanks, Apeksha. I hope you're able to hear me clearly, and we're excited to hear Dhanashree and Divya's thoughts as well. And as I was deliberating on this, I think stereotyping in a very high access world today, almost anything and everything is getting stereotyped. And it's incidentally so that the more agnostic we want to build a world which is collective, the more identity driven we are getting in. So to me, stereotype is actually across all identities, very specific to women HR or business leaders. To me, HR is business, so both of them are business leaders. It is business oriented roles. Uh, I think as women leaders, there's certain standard stereotypes we all still live through of saying, okay, how ambitious gets defined. Uh, the entire judgment of personalities versus ability to make decisions and make choices. Those are stereotypes we still opt through. Uh, the ability to make choices in the wake of also balancing life is again a stereotype that a lot of women still work through, of saying, do I let go and do I balance out there? I think those are single women, can they work longer hours? Women with families, can they give time? These are very standard stereotypes that today, across all sectors, I think we continue to operate with. Having said that, I think the shift that organizations have truly made is the consciousness around it. I think the whole awareness of saying, hey, these are possible stereotypes that one can fall in. And again, as I say, I don't think these are just women. These are cross gender neutral, where we build in certain images and identities, which as conscious as we get, there are higher chances that we are over it. But the whole thing of who leaves the crown at the garage and gets back to regular life, who can take on more challenging, opportunities at work, those are challenges that we all deal with. And happy to hear Divya's and Dhanashree's thoughts as well.
Yeah, sure, Madhulika. So, Dhanashree, if you can go next.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible. So, to answer the question, is there a stereotype? I think women and men both have a stereotype, clearly, right? In terms of, if we start, if I start saying out adjectives, we start associating some with women more and some with men more. For example, if I say nurturing, I'm sure majority will relate more to the women than men. If I say aggressive, they will relate more to men. So, that's the whole lens in terms of how we evaluate. So, there is definitely a stereotype. And I think as one rise, as women rise higher, I increasingly see, and research also shows that women start adopting so called male characteristics. There's nothing which is really male or female in it. Both of us have, as they say, the he in the she and the she in the he. But, there are these characteristics of, being very aggressive, being assertive. A lot of that are overcompensated because I think in our heads we have to prove that I can be a fighter and I can survive, right? And that does govern. I feel in a sense it takes away a lot of strengths that women are known for. In terms of, yes, women are naturally more nurturing in the gender, and somewhere in that need to compensate, we take away the core strength. So I'm sort of building that awareness. The other part I'm realizing is also when we work with the colleagues, um, I'm not sure how much it's looked up to if someone is, learning to balance. In some ways, we have it wired in our societal structure, right? That looking after the family is a woman's job, and working is a man's job. And as you rise higher, it's about learning to balance that. So there is definitely that stereotype in the way we judge, in the way we make decisions. Has it got better? Like Madhulika said, yes, it's getting better. But is it, I think it's a long way in still being able to break. And I'm speaking of women for themselves. I think the biggest challenge is they themselves breaking this mindset of what they can and cannot do.
Sure, thank you, Dhanashree. Divya.
Thanks, Apeksha. And I think Madhulika and Dhanashree have captured the essence extremely clearly. To answer your question, I do believe there are stereotypes, not just for women in HR and business, but also HR as a profession. Right? I remember, anecdotally, when I was making up my career choice to join HR, a lot of my colleagues, friends, family sort of alluded to it being a female profession. So the profession itself suffers from that stereotype, let alone the genders that play a role and take on responsibilities. And a typical stereotype of a manager or a leader is too often a man. And if you look at the cliche of an HR practitioner today, the general stereotypical traits that Dhanashree and Madhulika also mentioned, like nurturing, caring about people, caregiving responsibilities, being communal, social, empathetic, leading with trust, leading with relationships. I think they are all stereotyped as, yes, women may be able to do these better, or differently, as having more EQ versus IQ, right? And so these are biases that we have that have long existed, and I think all of us in our own ways are trying to break these biases, to say that let's try and enable an atmosphere and a culture of a level playing field. And just I was reading up some statistics as I was preparing for this session, and a very thought provoking uh, set of data, where there has been, overall, if you look at representation of women in the HR function, almost 73% of HR practitioners at a managerial level are women, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? 73. But if you look at CHROs, or top leadership positions in HR, the number dwindles to about 50 to 55%, right? And so that's a larger topic for us to think about. Why is this gap? Why is this not represented meaningfully at the higher levels? And then are we creating those stereotypes or those biases to say that, yes, women, that at the higher level, it is possibly that we'll have more male counterparts than women. So somewhere the numbers don't add up, right? So think something for us to think about in our own organizations, in the way we are setting the culture, setting the tone for women across the board. I think the pandemic again has been such a huge revelation to how lives have we have changed as a corporate entity, right? We are no longer looking at certain stereotypes of working from home, or whether work gets done at home or not. And we moved past that. The pandemic has given us a great opportunity. But even through the pandemic, if you read how the pandemic has shaped the narrative for women, specifically working women, it's different, and it is concerning as well, because a lot of women have reported increased burnout through pandemic, right? So there are stereotypes, to answer the question again, and how we are tackling those, breaking those barriers, and challenging those biases, conscious or unconscious, is something that I'm sure all of us here in the room do every day. So that's my view.
Sure, thank you, Divya. So we already touched upon what we would want to discuss in the second question, actually. So, we talked about how we should develop women leaders in organizations. So that could be a general kind of a scenario where you can share your opinion, and would specifically we would like to understand how you are doing it in your organizations, providing them, opportunities to grow within the organization. How you, if you can share some examples and stories, how you are doing it at your place. So, Madhulika, if you can start with.
Sure, Apeksha. And I think connected to the base that we kind of built in, and Divya, I think brought it up very clearly of the shift between the senior most to at the senior most level. How does it look like? When we talk of developing leaders, I think fundamentally any development, like living beings, it looks for nurturing. It looks for heat or exposure. A plant needs the exposure. And obviously, you need an environment which is enabling enough for one to develop. So, to me, those are three fundamental things. You nurture enough and you provide that heat, and you create an environment which makes them develop. And if that's the definition of developing, or elements for developing, I think when I look at my Providence itself, I think as a the fact that it's a new and developing organization growing here in India, um, with a very very rich legacy from the US. I guess the biggest optic breakthrough that I see is the leadership team has almost 45 to 50% gender diversity, which is women. So the optic of it gives a huge confidence, and I think it's a huge credit to the Providence Global Leadership Team and the country leaders here to be able to make that deliberate effort that the leadership itself is almost 50% diverse, because that gives a significant amount of confidence as women employees walk in at all levels to say, hey, there are people one can look up to across all business roles, functions. you're talking of a strategy that you CFO as women, it really gives a lot of optical confidence to say, hey, this is an organization which is truly invested in women's growth. So that's one thing Providence, I think, has very taken very deliberate effort. To second is aligning it to the purpose. I think a very vision and mission oriented organization with healthcare technology as an area that we're working on to make a difference. I think women, again, just like we were talking, technology to me in a very non-tech world is creating solutions in all possible ways. And I think women are pre-configured to it. They just know how to find solutions in different ways. In healthcare, if the care and nurturing is defined as our core, uh, I think that's one thing Providence does again very well is connecting women to the purpose of why we exist as an organization and the impact we're here to create. So that really helps candidates to employees within of saying why am I here and what's the difference I'm creating, and generally to be able to help them make those decisions. The third, which we see today, what are the constraints that women face when developing as leaders, is the ability to make their own decisions and choices, right? So the more choices I can make and the decisions I can build in, so my environment, my processes, or my policy, or programs of growth are primarily focused on saying, hey, who do I want to be as a professional? So the purpose is really to create more capable and confident women, and in the journey they grow to the processes, applications, technologies they wish to build. So that to me is the heat or exposure that needs to be provided to a plan to grow. Saying, do I provide them the right opportunities to get out of the shells and make their decisions and choices? In addition, whether it's the policies of benefits, leaves, flexibility, I think those are enablers to me to be able to provide women a safe environment, which I think Providence has been extremely front running on in its 2 years of establishment to be able to provide that environment. That's also been a huge thing. 38 to 40% diversity, gender diversity in the tech space is fairly front running, and then that really works well for us. Uh, the last of it, if I was to just cover, in addition to the culture that one enables, which is about authenticity, a lot of our campaigns are about saying, I'm me, and do I allow oneself to be themselves? And any space of authenticity gives women a certain level of empowerment to say, okay, I walk in the way I believe I represent myself. And that also gives them freedom to operate and develop themselves. Our entire mission or purpose focus to make a societal impact. And the kind of deliberate efforts we made, whether it's a recent, sponsorship of something like a She Shuttle, which is talking about women being independent in the IT corridor, or our footprint impact program that we're looking at with every new joining coming in, we are investing in a girl child health and sanitation. So all these programs are focused where women feel family safer, enabled, authentic, and know that this is a space where they can grow. So those are broad efforts, if I was to talk in a nutshell, where the primary environment is of authenticity, and they're able to see optically leaders at the top, and thereby find it far more encouraging to work.
Thank you, Madhulika, for those. Dhanashree, if you would like to share some insights here.
So globally, if you really look at, and I'm speaking from my experience in consulting, it is a worldwide thing that, the funnel at women as they rise to the top starts trickling down towards the middle positions. And hence the funnel is not really able to support, women moving to leadership levels. And some of the reasons why that happens is also what are the headwinds which happen in the organization. For example, how do you network? Okay, how do you support? So things like, just look at how we socialize, right? Many a times it's over a drink in the evening, or you hang out in the evening, or you socialize. Whereas, if the primary, relating to your first question, in terms of how stereotypes exist, a lot of women in the workforce, the expectation is that you go back home and take care of family. You are concerned about whether your child is completing their homework and completing this, and a lot of these are practical tips which keep going on, which causes career choices to be made. It's also uh, seen that while women are fantastic at relationships or nurturing, They struggle making networking. They struggle in networking when it comes to for business context. Okay, because I think at a very core level, I think all of us as women are taught, you don't really talk about a lot about yourself, and being in the limelight is not something that comes naturally, right? Because a woman is somewhere in the background putting things together. So a lot of these are very, very practical things, which, as proven by research, shows that why women struggle. And the only way to make this happen, in my mind, is a tripartite thing in understanding what are the headwinds which really encourage and support women to be successful back at work, uh, more than something which is traditional training programs or learning journeys. I would say actively involving the manager in awareness that yes, women may struggle at this. Okay, or they need active hand holding in making business connects, in making sure, like anything financial, a lot of it, and I'm coming from financial space, there is already a bias which we operate with, right? That women are not very good at managing finances, and we have grown up with that in terms of roles. Finances, real estate is managed by the other gender. A lot of this becomes practical even at decision making back at work. And it's how about breaking that? So at Bharti AXA, for example, I must say that at middle management and above, we are at 35%. Across the organization, we are at 22%. And yes, there is work in terms of how can we make it flexible, available, accessible for women, because there are practical things that we need to work on. I say, for example, with the current practices in maternity, 6 to 8 months, I mean, women can't help it. This is how nature has blessed them. So how do we ensure that there is enough support available for them? Okay, and to continue, sustain, and avoid dropouts there is something that we are actively working on. We are blessed to have one of the only zonal heads in sales as a woman who's been leading this. So, a lot of practices around how do we create more examples to ensure we have more women in sales, because, statistically, what we have seen is their retention is much better, productivity is at par, and as an organization, how do we are sensitive to how we socialize, how we communicate, is also something that we are actively working on.
Great to know that, Dhanashree. Divya, while you already talked about some general statements on it, if you can quickly have how you are doing it in GE for women succession planning.
Sure. Thanks. Definitely, like Dhanashree and Madhulika shared, I think this is the uh, most important charter for companies today. And across GE and GE Healthcare, we are focused on attracting, retaining, and growing our diverse talent and creating that culture that Dhanashree and Madhulika talked about, right? Just to share with you overall, our at a leadership level, and it all starts at the top. The role modeling has to be done by the leaders. And if you look at G Healthcare South Asia today, from last year to this year, in 1 year, we moved from 10% representation to a 36% representation. So we've moved the needle at the highest level of leadership, at the CEO staff level. Having said that, that's not enough. If I just go to the next level of senior leaders, that's where the biggest gap is for us in terms of finding, as attracting and retaining our high performing and high potential diverse talent. And that's where I think that there is the call of action and a rallying cry across the organization to do something there. There are a few challenges there as well, right? Across different functions, across different fields. Dhanashree talked about the funnel. There is challenge in creating that pool itself, and how do we proactively take steps of creating a pool, is something that's on top of our agenda. Right, we are challenging hiring managers, hiring and leaders to not accept non-diverse hiring slates. Right, and while we are looking at some metrics from a diversity standpoint, this truly has to be at a more cultural level to be lived out. It's not lip service. Right, at every people review that we do, which is quarterly, we are trying to build in mechanisms to understand who will be our on our slate from a diversity standpoint, and do we have enough strength, succession bench strength. Today we are at risk across most of the n-1 roles because we do not have that level of bench strength. So I think with all of these imperatives, it becomes extremely important for us to not just create uh, proactively pools where we can tap into, but also nurture and grow talent from within. If you look at our attrition rates, if we look at our promotion rates, what are best ways to grow? We've had a lot of cultural enabling sessions all of last year with challenging and conscious biases. We are also looking, we've also completed 3 different programs for diverse talent, which are to build their leadership potential. We've partnered with IIM Calcutta for a customized leadership program for our diverse talent. We are working on something called She Inspires, which is a cross G, not just healthcare, but cross G business program for budding women leaders. We also have something called She Glows, which is basically looking at different pillars of life and how they work together to create a more successful leader. So these are things that we have been doing. We've been able to move the needle from a cultural perspective, but a lot still needs to be done in terms of seeing the data move. And unless we see the data shift, we will not be able to take be able to say that we've been able to do it in the best possible way. So I think that's high on our priority and agenda, and it was one of our strategic priorities. Just from business standpoint, one thing across GE which is truly different is that this is not an HR agenda. This is a business priority, and all leaders and all hiring managers are accountable for this, and we are putting together mechanisms and operating rhythms to say that this is being tracked and leaders are held accountable for this as well.
Great to know that, Divya. So while we already touched upon the challenges part of it, if we can, build further and have quick one, maybe biggest challenge that you see as HR leaders. In terms of how the global economic uncertainties have impacted the employment and growth opportunities for women. So if we can have, one of those key challenges from you, Madhulika, first.
I'm assuming you're referring to obviously the economic uncertainty post-pandemic, Apeksha. And to if I see specific to your question on women employment and growth, I think the entire ecosystem has shifted for more support and dependence with everything that's changed. So that definitely adds into the pressure of any working woman or any woman for that matter, in addition to obviously all genders and a family ecosystem. So that thing has impacted their choices to again hold for employment growth or look for balance. Um, the entire flexibility that today the world has witnessed, India more specifically in the corporate sector, has worked both as a pro and a con. So if I was to see as a challenge, it is that whole focus of saying how do I balance, because my entire priority of what's my life experience has shifted, and that's true for everybody, actually everybody. But more importantly for women, then their need to keep that balance and support has increased. And in this, and this could be a little off the typical conversations we are hearing about the need for flexibility and let remote working work. uh, I personally believe it's a time for us to challenge of saying, hey, do we just let that flexibility be? But that may cause where increasingly the workspaces again become one gender oriented. And that's why it's important that we challenge our women colleagues as well, to one, continue prioritizing themselves in that journey of balancing, and look at still stepping out and looking and working out of that flexibility model of still being part of workspaces very, very actively. I think in one line, I say that that's a very unsaid challenge, but it's increasingly seeing its shape where women are looking for more flexibility because work can be done but the longer run impact that it may cause in terms of their, they're not stepping out, is an area we all need to be conscious about, and thereby look for both an ecosystem and processes that are balancing. That's how I would see it.
Sure, Madhulika, great point shared there. Dhanashree, what would be that one biggest challenge you see?
I think the big challenge that I see is because the lines are blurred so much, it's become quite taxing for women to just manage both the roles together. And as organizations, how do we allow that? So when I say flexibility, yes, earlier work from home was something like a perk which was offered. Today, it's a necessity. And in many ways, I think I personally see a lot of banes of work from home because you're almost stretched on either sides in terms of your responsibilities at home as well as managing work together. So I think it's been very very taxing, specifically for women to to be able to manage. I do see work hours have stretched a lot, when you say work from home. The cutoffs are not really finite, and with a hybrid work situation, it even becomes a little more blurred. So I would say some of the things that we are trying to do is build consciousness around, not just for women in general, but more so about having clear cutoffs in terms of what is acceptable. Detoxing, a digital detox is something that we strongly encourage. I would sort of need more flexibility or awareness on the part that the role balance that comes in. Okay, I mean, in some ways I'm being very practical about it when we say, let's say, looking after the house and managing while you're doing a call, is more supposedly still a woman's job, or will continue to be so. Or ensuring that your children have done their homework while you're attending a call and presenting. Just look at the memes which come up or the pictures which come up. You're almost balancing these multiple hats in the air, and I think it's draining a lot in terms of women, and add to that cases of single parent. So I think it is challenging, and there is need for awareness, sensitivity around this. I'm sensitive to my male counterparts also, because it can get taxing for them, perhaps a little bit more for women.
Thank you, Dhanashree. Divya, your viewpoint here.
Sure. I think I will not repeat, what Madhulika and Dhanashree mentioned, but I think women are seeing the pandemic impact as a potential threat to their career progression in the company. And why I say that is because of two reasons. One, there have been truly adverse changes in the daily routines during the pandemic and the responsibilities from a work and a caregiving perspective, right? So there is a threat in their mind in terms of, as we come back or return to office or even return in a hybrid environment, how will that work? And in the absence of non-inclusive behaviors by managers, I think that to me is the biggest threat that will really carve what the next 2 years on gender diversity will look like. This is our time to really be very very clear of what behaviors are acceptable and not, as we are bringing people back, and especially in terms of inclusive behaviors. And so microaggression or exclusion from meetings just because somebody has still not been able to come back to work, or trying to discriminate, absolutely unacceptable. And this is going to lead the way for how women see whether they want to continue to be in their companies or not. So it's more a test for us as employers to create that enabling environment for everybody to coexist in an ecosystem where obviously there is a sweet spot between the business needs, the customer needs, and the employee needs. So all three have to be in place for that sweet spot and intersection to happen, and not one or two or just one, right? So that would be my take.
Thank you, Divya. And as we, come to the end of this session, to conclude it, I would like to have very crisp, maybe one-line messages which you would like to send out to all the young women professionals out there on the occasion of International Women's Day. So, Madhulika, if we can first go with you.
Very quickly, as one line, I think prioritize your own learning because the world is changing and there isn't an option but to keep yourself up. And most importantly, accept yourself as you are. I think the lesser the external validation and more of believing that the imperfect you is still the very complete you, just takes you far ahead in the game. So that would be my one message.
Awesome, Madhulika. Dhanashree.
So I would say you are as good as you think you are. And women as a tribe, I think we don't support each other enough. Okay, so I would say look for that, look for anchors, create anchors for yourself. And, it's again going back to you're as good as you think you are. It's gender, it doesn't matter which gender you're from. Yeah.
Great, brilliant, Dhanashree. Divya.
I would just say challenge your own limiting beliefs, because a lot of times we have a different world in our heads, and we may be assuming a lot of things. So I would say just challenge your own limiting beliefs, and it'll help you navigate your career in the way you want to navigate it.
Great message, Divya. So, with that, we have come to the end of this session. Thank you, Madhulika, Dhanashree, and Divya, for such an inspiring, energizing conversation. It was a pleasure having you with us today. And to the audience out there, do join us at 4:30 p.m. in the evening again for another exciting session at ETHR World Women Trailblazers. Again, thank you all of you for joining us today at this conversation. It was indeed a pleasure having you here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Apeksha.
much, everyone. Thank
And
you.
Dhanashree,
Pleasure
Divya.
connecting with all of you. Thank you,
Same here.
Madhulika,
Likewise,
Divya,
thank
and
you.
Apeksha.